It's time for the HasanAbi movie hour. That's right. Really quickly, before I move on, I'm joined by Michael Barbaro for the HasanAbi movie hour. That's right. When I was flying over to Tampa, I had a unique opportunity to watch a movie that I was not really looking forward to watching at all, as a matter of fact, until it got the Oscar nod. I'm of course referencing Tar. Tar was a riveting masterpiece in my opinion, thrilling, suspenseful. Okay? And I greatly enjoyed it. Okay? And I'll tell you what. Tar, for those of you who don't know, is a 2022 psychological drama film written and directed by Todd Field. It stars the wonderful Cate Blanchett as Lydia Tar. In my opinion, Cate Blanchett acted her ass off in this movie. Lydia Tar is a renowned conductor who is accused of sexual misconduct. Tar premiered at the 79th Venice International Film Festival in September 2022, where Blanchett won the Volpe Cup for Best Actress. The film had a limited theatrical release and was overall a flop. It was not widely accepted by domestic or international audiences. The film had the limited release in the United States on October 7th before a wide release on October 28th by Focus Features. Although it got widespread acclaim for Blanchett's performance, it unfortunately did not do so well in the box office. Now let me tell you something. I loved it. It was very suspenseful. It was very good. It was hyper realistic. It was like, I would call it hyper realistic sociological horror. Okay? And then the last act of the movie was when things, in my opinion, completely unwinded and turned into something entirely different. A lot of people are saying it's kind of boring. It was too beautiful for it to be boring. For me, at least. Psychological? No. Sociological is the right term, not psychological. Because Todd Field hyper-focused on so many concepts that people talk about regularly, and I think a lot of people watched it at face value and they thought, it's about cancel culture. It's criticizing the awfulness of cancel culture and how it can take down like a person by whipping up drama around them or whatever. And I did like that aspect of it because it absolutely it kind of left it up to the viewer to make that assessment. It gave enough for you to think that like Lydia Tar was actually a horrible monster, but it also gave you so little that it could feel at times like she was an over-accomplishing person who was in the spotlight, who was, as a matter of fact, being targeted for no reason. Like, and it's great because all of my Twitter brain fan base will look at that and go, she groomed young women. Yes, that's the point. The point was that the actual point of the movie was supposed to be that whether she groomed young women or not was supposed to be left up to the viewer. They always gave you enough information, but not so much that it wasn't conclusive. Okay? And it was great. It was about her workers being the talent. It was about labor. Okay, I don't know about that far. Nah, they were very explicit about that part. I think she did as well, for the record. It's a movie about an asshole making great art. What did you think about the ending being Monster Hunter? I thought it was pretty funny. But ultimately, guess I missed that. It seems like she obviously groomed them. I think she had... I think that there was definitely sexual misconduct. And from what I understand, the way that they basically presented, and I think it's really interesting, is that at the final sequence is like the final act leaves it all up to the imagination, whether or not you actually consider it to be like entirely in Lydia Tarr's imagination, or if she is legitimately experiencing these things. Okay? Anyway, I liked it a lot. Ian Miles' wrong take on Tar. Yeah, if you're a fucking absolute dumbass, this is going to be your takeaway from the movie. This.
There's a humility in Bach. He's not pretending he's certain about anything. Because he knows that it's always the question.
You know what it is? You know what I liked about Tar? In some ways, it's a similar reason why I like White Lotus. Everyone's bad. Everyone's an asshole. Now, of course, not the victims or anything like that, because they don't really get featured all too prominently throughout the movie, especially the main victim. But like, Succession is like that too, but White Lotus especially is like that. Everyone is so, like, everyone is bad. No one is good. Okay? And that's how the real world is as well. Which is precisely why, like, this guy is like, I'm a BIPOC pangender person, and I don't want to listen to Bach, which is like such a fucking overblown, ridiculous concept. And and her response to that guy is also not supposed to be super perfect in that regard. She's right when she criticizes his takes, but she's not a good person. So, like, for Ian to have the takeaway where she's like, oh, Kate Blanchett takes on critical race theory and gender identity politics in her new role, absolutely based, is so fucking stupid. Like, you literally are not supposed to, your takeaway shouldn't be, oh man, she's really popping off in this one. You know what I mean? Unless you're a fucking moron. And plenty of people, the movie's about how she's a sexual predator. Yeah. Like, I can't believe you watched that and your takeaway is like, damn, I really loved when she fucking ripped the new asshole into this fucking student. She has a bad take though? No, I don't think she has a bad take even in this regard, where she talks about how, the contributions, or at least like your takeaway should be, the contributions that a lot of these people have made to art is what matters, and their own personal experiences or their own personal, what they did in their private matters. There's literally a line in the movie from one of her mentors that actually says about Schopenhauer, I think it was about Schopenhauer, where she was like, well, what he did in his private affairs should not pertain to like what, should not take away from his actual contributions, right? So it's not a bad take, but she's an asshole to the student for the rest of the class about it. Exactly. It's supposed to show. No, it wasn't Chopin. It was Schopenhauer. No, it was Schopenhauer. It was a philosopher that we're talking about, not Chopin. Anyway, but Ian Miles wrong with the wrong take, as always.
But nowadays, white male cis composers, just not my thing.
Don't be so eager to be offended. The narcissism of small differences leads to the most boring conformity.
I guess Edgar Varese is okay. I mean, anyway.
Oh, well, then you must be aware that Varese once famously stated that jazz was a Negro product exploited by the Jews. Didn't stop Jerry Goldsmith from ripping him off for his Planet of the Apes score. It's kind of a perfect insult, don't you think? But you see, the problem with enrolling yourself is
also, the whole undertone of the film is that what we are seeing on screen didn't even happen, but an imagination of what it might be like to live the life she actually wanted. It's like when you argue with someone in this, in the shower that night, you think of the perfect response. Basically what these losers do every day online.
Ultrasonic epistemic dissident is that if Bach's talent can be reduced to his gender, birth country, religion, sexuality, and so on, then...
By the way, this part wasn't even good.
So
like, this is not even a good counter.
Now, someday, Max, when you go out into the world and you guest conduct for a major or minor orchestra, you may notice that the players have more than light bulbs and music on their stands. They will also have been handed rating sheets, the purpose of which is to rate you. Now, what kind of criteria would you hope that they would use to do this? Your score reading and stick technique, or something else? All right, everyone. Using Max's criteria, let's consider Max's thing. In this case, Anna Boabaz-Dolter. Now, can we agree on 2 pieces of observation? 1, that Anna was born in Iceland, and 2, that she is, in a, I don't know, Waldorf teacher kind of way, a super hot young woman. Show of hands. All right, now let's turn our gaze back to the piano bench up there and see if we can square how any of those things possibly relate to the person we see seated before us. Where you go?
Yeah. Wait, he isn't even getting the movie? What the fuck? Yeah, no shit. But in some ways, him rooting for her means that this actually this did a really good job, because this is supposed to be a Jordan Peterson moment. Okay? This quite literally is a Jordan Peterson moment. She has every opportunity and is incredibly knowledgeable. She has every opportunity to use this as an educational moment to be like, listen, I understand none of these people are perfect. We're all imperfect vessels, and yet our contributions to art is what should matter in that regard. But instead, she hyper-focuses on like, she hyper-focuses on the pure vanity of it, okay? If you look at Bach on the grounds of like on the grounds of his demographic, on the grounds of like his demographics, then one day you will be rated on a similar aspect, and that's exactly, you don't want that. And it's like, well, that's not the point. That is not the point at all, because she's supposed to be vapid, okay? Incredibly self-important. This is a woman from Staten Island who changed her name from Linda to Lydia specifically, and never talks about her background on purpose, and hides her experiences on purpose, because she doesn't want people to know. She feeds into that very same narcissistic, vapid, shallow, this side of the industry that she's a part of. Okay? She also has to have this take so that her own art is not negatively viewed in the future. A reactionary person I know made me watch Tar, but he had only seen the first half. When I watched the scene in class when she's acting like a lunatic, he said it was an example of her being unfairly canceled, that these ungrateful students are throwing away the opportunity to learn from a genius. I said she was acting insane and making anxious students want to die, and he said I didn't know what I was talking about. Like, both of these people are in the wrong in this regard, though. That's what I wanted to get away. That's what I want your takeaway to be from this, at least. And I think that's what the director was trying to do, where like, this is classic like bullshit fucking young student goes overboard about like gender shit, you know, the age old, like, even Norman Finkelstein has fallen to this line of propaganda, if you've ever listened to him talk recently, where he's always like, oh, I can't believe people don't want to read Shakespeare any longer. And it's like, it's so fucking stupid, okay? That is such a stupid non-issue. Like, I don't personally think that, I don't personally think, maybe I'm wrong, that like college campuses are like legitimately saying no more Shakespeare, no more Bach, no more Beethoven. These are all fucking white men. You can't learn anything from white men. If anything, they're probably saying we need to diversify, we need to diversify the artists and the philosophers that we engage with in schools, because that will broaden people's worldview, which is an understandable and desirable position for an institute of higher learning. Okay? That's normal for them to have that perspective. It's good for them to have that perspective. But I don't think that comes at the cost of like saying no more Shakespeare. Okay? That's just a silly, lazy fucking take. And this kid is basically doing that take because it's like a young, anxious person who wants to come across as unique. That's why he's saying that. You know what I mean? That's why he's like coming out and being like, I'm BIPOC, pangender, and I don't care to I don't care to read into Bach too much because it's not diverse enough. He's in the wrong there, okay? And she's in the wrong for her response. Please talk about the Radlib Nepo Baby Cello Girl at lunch with Lydia, International Women's Day. I mean, that was kind of funny too. But yeah, no one in this movie is right. No one in this movie is correct. And that's not supposed to be. They're not supposed to be correct. If you look at them and you're like, oh, I really understood where they were coming from. You're like kind of telling on yourself a little bit. But having said that, it's just, I don't know. I thought it was great. I thought it was a great movie overall. Because it definitely was thrilling for me. Will said that he didn't feel all that thrilled. He didn't feel like the suspense was high enough or the stakes were high enough. But I really loved it. And I did think the stakes were high, especially because if you find yourself understanding Lydia Tarr's position, the stakes are the highest. Are you kidding me? You're at the top. You're supposed to finish the fifth Mahler composition, and then you're done. You know what I mean? You've ended your career in this perfect cycle, and then it's taken away from you right before you're able to do that. Like, to that, because of what the stakes are for her, that's everything. That's worse than death. But from what I understand, I think the interpretation is supposed to be that like she takes it seriously no matter where she is. Like, Lydia Tarr overcomes, doesn't matter, and that's what your takeaway, I think, is supposed to be, at least according to the editors that took out that line, but that line that was in the script originally. There is a line in the script where it says like Lydia Tarr takes everything seriously. And she ends up fucking composing Monster Hunter World in the Philippines. Which I thought was pretty funny. But she still does it with the same, like, is it integrity, intensity of like being at the, Berlin Philharmonic. But yeah, ultimately, she's such a great fucking actress, especially this scene. Oh my God. If you are looking at it specifically from the lens of like cinema as an artistic medium and acting as an art, this entire like 15-minute sequence is like insane to watch. She acts her fucking tits off, dude. She's so good. Anyway, this is some white people shit. Sorry, I am lost. Shut up, bitch. Yeah, it was all one shot. She's great. Kate Blanchett is Meryl Streep. Stop lying, acting mid as fuck. We need a diverse sector, 2 white movie. What? Oh, that's okay. I think people are just trying to bait. Great movie overall. I have not watched Suzume. I watched 1917 as well. That was also a great movie. I watched that after. And Did you see the ghost in the apartment? I did. It was fucking terrifying. I did not, dude. There is a lot going on in this movie that is like that you can, you know, not really see if you don't pay attention to it. You'll miss it. Yes, Tar is a ghost movie in some ways. In some ways, it is a hyper realistic sociological horror, okay? Like hyper realistic, and it's also the exact opposite where it's very surreal and it's like a ghost story simultaneously. Especially when the final act opens up in that moment where she falls down, where she's supposed to be like following her the new cellist into her apartment complex and realizes that that's not actually the things are not the way that they're supposed to be. From that moment on, you start seeing there's a lot of instances where like she is possibly because of her insomnia, she's possibly experiencing like hallucinations and whatnot. But from that point on, you literally start seeing like her mania comes into the forefront instead of the opposite. In the beginning, it's way more realistic and it seems like she's in control, but there's like small moments in the background where like she's basically haunted by her assistant originally, but then in the last act that becomes the forefront, and what she's experiencing in the real world, if she's even experiencing it at all, turns into something in the background, something that you have a hard time coming to terms with, in my opinion. Yes, she also has misophonia. There you go. But yeah, the final act is almost like a dreamlike sequence, honestly. Because there's a lot of stuff that happens in the final act that just like doesn't make any sense. When you're like, what the fuck? Like when she rolls up to the it's even in the trailer, when she rolls up to the Mahler, like the Berlin Philharmonic, playing her music when she can't find it, and then the fucking trumpet person is like literally in the background like she originally intended it to be, but then no one is actually seeing her. It just like is weird. Anyway, Tar is basically Whiplash meets Black Swan. It's surreal, narcissistic musical tragedy for lesbians. I loved it. All right. Anyway, that's all. That's the movie hour. That concludes the HasanAbi movie hour. Thanks to our wonderful contributors, we are able to keep NPR truly editorially independent. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe. The movie is called Tar. It was awesome. I love this kind of shit.